Okay, so this is Mr. Heeren. This is for 1-4 and percents and absolute value. So kind of where you're starting to find a percent given a fraction, you're going to divide the numerator by the denominator. So real quick, so if I just say take 1/2, how do I convert that into a percent? Well, I just take 1 divided by 2, and that's going to go in 0.5, and there's my answer. All right, so if you received 21 out of 24 in your last quiz, what percentage of the questions did you answer correctly? So 21 out of 24. So 21 divided by 24. If you can do it with a calculator, that's going to go a lot quicker. If you want to do it by hand, that's cool too. So 21 divided by 24 is going to be 87 or 0.875. So convert that to a percent, that's going to be 87.5%. All right. So kind of the relationship you're looking at is fraction, decimal, percent. Kind of the behavior that goes back and forth is just for decimal and percent, you're going to move the decimal place 2 places, either right or left. So to find a percent given a decimal, so now you're looking at a decimal, you're kind of working backwards trying to figure out what the percent is. So you're looking, you're trying to figure out what it is, move the decimal 2 places to the right. So multiply the decimal by 100 to change to a percent. So again, this is kind of that going back and forth. Move the decimal 2 places right to get a percent. Multiply decimal by 100 to change to a percent. Same kind of idea. So express 0.0235 as a percent. So it's going to move 2 places. Or multiply it by 100. It does the exact same thing. So that's going to be 2.35%. All right, that's going to be the percent from that decimal. So another way to think about it is your percent over 100. So if I said something like 30%, 30 is what percent of 70? I should put the of in here. 30 is what percent of 70? So is kind of the part, and of is kind of the whole. Okay, 75 is the whole thing, 30 is the part. So 30 is the percentage, 75 is going to be 100% of the number you're talking about. So what percent is 45 of 78? So now take a look. You've got 45 out of 78. You're trying to find a percentage. So you've got 45 over 78 is equal to percentage over 100. So now you got to remember it's kind of your fraction, equal fractions rules. So what you want to do is take 45 divided by 78 times 100. And when you do that, that's going to be about 57.69%. So 45 is about 58% of 78. Now, what percent of 45 is 115? So 45 over 115, and that's going to be equal to a percentage over 100. Now, you got to kind of start using your logical thought here, start thinking about what might actually happen. So 45 out of 115, instinctively, should that be bigger or smaller than 50%? Well, 45 is less than 50, and this is 115 is bigger than 100. 50 out of 100 is 1/2. 45 is less. 115 is bigger. So I hope that my percentage is less than 50%. That's just kind of spot checking along the way. So as a decimal, it's 0.3913. As a percent, 39.13%. Like that. That's what that needs to look like. All right, so kind of switching it around here on this bottom one, 12 is 15% of what number? Well, now I'm given a percent here, and I'm giving the part, all right? I'm given the is. 12 is means I'm given that part. I'm looking for what is the big number, what is the of number. So I've got 12 over the of number, just call it x for lack of a better term, and I've got 15% over 100. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So now it's a little bit different. Now, the way I need to figure this out is I need to do a little rearranging here. Okay, so if I go here, 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 that's going to mean that I'm going to have 15x is going to be equal to 1200. All right, that's just using cross products. Multiplying diagonally, you do that when you have two fractions that are equal to each other. So now divide by 15 and you get your answer. Now, again, your answer should be bigger than 12 because 12 is only 15%, so it should be significantly bigger than that. So that's going to be 80. And you can kind of check. If you do it correctly, 12 over 80 should give you 0.15, which is 15%. If you check on your calculator or check something there, that's exactly what happens. So we're good to go. So a percent of change, a percent increase, percent decrease. This comes into play a lot, especially if you ever buy anything on sale and this says 30% off or 40% off, or it says $10 off or $30 off, or you go buy a car and they say now we'll take $3,000 off. Well, what percentage of the original amount is that? So if you take a look, percent change, difference in amounts over original amount, that's kind of what we're looking at. That's your percent change, and then you got to use your head a little bit. Is that going to be an increase or a decrease? So number one, the number of students at Franklin High School increased from 840 to 910 over a 5-year period. What was the percent increase? Okay, so that percent increase is going to be my difference over the original amount. So my difference from 840 to 910, my difference is going to be 70 over the original amount. The original amount was 840, so it's going to be 70 over 840. So as a decimal, that's 0.0833, repeating. As a percent, that's going to be 8 point, it's going to be 8.33%. Okay, now, second one kind of brings up another point here. So TV was originally $400, but is now only $345. What is the percent decrease in the TV? So how much off is it really? So the change, the difference, is $55. Okay, I'm going to do this one up here, just so I have room. The change is going to be $55. The original amount, and here's the part that a lot of kids like to screw up. They'll figure out this difference, but then somebody will put 345 down here and get it all kind of twisted up. So don't do that. You want the original amount, which is 400. So 55 divided by 400 is going to be 0.1375. So that's 13.75%. So that's a 13% decrease in how much the TV is actually going to cost. So let's go shopping. So you got to buy an umbrella and you got to buy a dress. So find the total price. So now the umbrella is $14. The discount is 20%. The tax is 6%. So if we get 20% off, 20% off of 14. Okay, so real kind of easy way to do that is that you're looking for 80% of 100, and this is going to be 14, and you're trying to find that. All right, 80% over 100, because it's 80% because you're taking away 20%. All right, another way to think about it is that if it's a 20% discount, I can find 20 over 100. But realize if I do it this way, then I'm only finding the percent off. I'm not figuring out how much the umbrella is going to cost after the fact. Okay, if I do it this way, that's going to give me the cost once it's 20% off. So if I do it this way, that's going to be, the new price is going to be $11.20. The tax is a 6%, so that means I'm going to multiply by 0.06 because that's the conversion. So times 0.06 plus $11.20. So your total cost is going to be $11.87. That's going to be how much your umbrella is. All right, you took the discount and then you add the sales tax and away you go. For the dress, it's 30% off. The tax is 6.5%. So your dress at $70, all right, is going to be 30% off. So 70 is your whole. You're only paying 70% of the original 100%. So you got to figure out what that is. All right, so if I do a little cross products here, that gives me 10x equals 7 times 70. So 10x is going to be equal to 490. So x is going to be equal to 49. All right, anytime you divide by 10, you just get rid of a 0 or move a decimal place. So now 30% off, this is how much the dress costs before tax. All right, so $49 is how much it costs right now, but we got to put sales tax on it. So kind of an easy way I can do it the way I did over here. And all that did was figure out the tax and then I added it on to 1120. Kind of an easier way to do it would be if I multiply it times 1.06, or in this case 1.065. What that does is that gives you your total cost in one step. So if I take $49 times 1.065, that's going to give me $52, and they'll round it up to 19 cents. Okay, but notice, over here, let me erase this. Over here, I took 1120 and multiplied it by 0.06. Now, this is kind of a bad idea. 1120 times 0.06 is really 0.672. But realize, this is just the tax. That's just the tax. Then I add it back onto this, and that's where I get the 1187. Here on this one, I multiplied it times 1.065, and what that does is that takes the cost of the dress in this case and the tax and includes it all in one thing. Absolute value. Absolute value of any number is the distance away from 0 on the number line. And we think absolute value, is a distance ever negative? The correct answer to that is no. You cannot go negative miles an hour. You cannot go negative feet per second. It's always got to be positive. So x represents a absolute value of a number x. Notice that the symbol for absolute value is just these little bars. That's all it is. So absolute value of 7 is 7 because positive 7 is 7 units away from 0. Negative 7 is also 7 because, again, it is 7 units away from 0 on the number line. Right? If you sketch a number line and take a look, you'll figure out that that is the case. So now, where does absolute value fit into the order of operations? It kind of fits in that same idea as parentheses, as in take care of the absolute value first and then deal with what's outside. Okay, so here on this one, you got 1.4, then deal with all this inside of here. So 5 times negative 3 is negative 15 minus 7. Let me change colors here. You can't really read that very well. 1.4 plus absolute value of negative 22. But absolute value is positive. So my answer is actually going to be 23.75. 0.4. So that would be my evaluated answer right there. Now, so now if I take a look at this one, notice I've got a subtraction in front of the absolute value. That's okay. I've got to deal with that. All that means is whatever my answer is, I make it negative. So in here, 21 plus a negative 4 is going to be 17 plus 6.2. So this is outside, so it becomes negative 17. This is outside of the absolute value. Okay, over here, when it was inside the absolute value, we took care of it. The absolute value got rid of it. When it's on the outside, you just put it on the end. So what do I have left? That's going to be negative 10.8. That's going to be my answer. So absolute value, solving the absolute value equation. Rewrite the equation as a compound statement as two pieces, which is this. The entire thing equals B or equals C or negative C, and then solve it. All right, so notice one thing though. The absolute value is the only thing on that side of the equation. So you got to get the absolute value all by itself first. All right, so for this first one, absolute value of x equals 5, that means, well, x equals 5, which is the one everybody knows, or x equals negative 5. Likewise here, x equals negative 3. Well, think about this. Can an absolute value ever be negative? No. So a lot of people will try telling me, well, it's 3 or negative 3. And those are both wrong. The correct answer here is no solution. There is no number that you can take the absolute value of it and get negative 3 for an answer. All right, so here, solve for b. b plus 15 equals 3. So remember, two things can happen. First off, absolute value is by itself. It's not equal to a negative number. It's equal to a positive number. So you want b plus 15 equals 3. And you want b plus 15 equaling negative 3. And then it becomes two little one-step equations like you've been solving since you were in algebra. So this one should be negative 12, subtract 15, subtract 15. This one, same idea, but you're going to kind of go the other direction. So my answers are going to be negative 12 and negative 18. Okay, this is your key idea here, realizing that it's two separate equations. So here, you got to do one quick step forward first. The absolute value is not by itself, so I've got to get rid of that. So that's going to be 3n plus 2, absolute value, equals negative 4. Here we have a slight problem. I have an absolute value equal to a negative number. Once I hit this, look, absolute value all by itself equal to a negative number. No solution there. Nothing will work. All right, so be aware that that can kind of pop up when you're moving things around with your algebra skills. Here, can I do this? Well, yes, I should be able to. Okay, because if I subtract 4, remember, first rule, get these parentheses by itself. Get the absolute value by itself. Three times absolute value of x plus 5 equals 12. Now, it's kind of the equivalent of saying this. Instead of absolute value, it is parentheses. Well, here, you would divide by 3. So you're going to do that same thing here. That cancels out. You're left with the absolute value of x plus 5. That equals 4. Now, split it. X plus 5 equals 4. X plus 5 equals negative 4. So that means x is either going to equal negative 1 or x is going to equal negative 9. There's your answers right there. So you're going to have a worksheet. You're going to have a quiz coming soon. I think this is different. I don't think you've got a 1.1 through 1.4 quiz. I think you got a 1.1 through 1.3 quiz, and then a 1.4 gets rolled into something later. If you have any questions, please get in touch with me, and I will be happy to help you. Thank you.